Hello everyone, I am the storyteller, and tonight I am here just to help you relax, to drift off to sleep by the sound of the waves, like the whispers of old souls. I know you have come to this video not just to hear the story, but also to find a deep, peaceful sleep. But before we begin, please gently like the video and subscribe to the channel so I can continue to tell you strange stories under the dim moonlight. Where are you from? And what time is it where you live? Just relax. Let your body relax. Put all your worries down by your pillow. Let me take you into a world of mysteries where the wind and the waves mingle, and unsolved mysteries are waiting to be told. Are you ready? Bedtime for Muriel. Cocoa, warm, not scalding, with pink marshmallows. And use a mug this time. I don't need to lose any more porcelain by knocking it off the table in the middle of the night. Use your brain, for fuck's sake. Yes, Muriel, said Angela, nodding as she tucked the hummingbird motif duvet around the octogenarian's neck. I'll be right back. You just get comfy and listen to Barry. Listen to Barry, the old woman with the silver hair scoffed, shuffling under the covers as if in criticism of the way she'd been positioned. Why do I have to listen to Barry? He's a wanker. Why do you always play him? Because you love Barry Manilow, Angela replied, making sure the personal alarm on Muriel McCandless's bedside table was in reach. And he's the only one who gets you to sleep. Don't tell me I'm wrong. We've experimented with Neil and Lionel, but you always end up awake all night. We're not doing that again. Barry fucking Manilow, said Muriel, flopping her arms against the mattress like a petulant child. Sounds like a cat being strangled. Absolute wanker. Angela couldn't suppress a giggle as she made her way across to the door, pausing to retrieve the tray laden with pill bottles and blister packs of various medications from the dresser beside it. And why is that horrible painting still on my wall? I told you, I don't like it. It gives me nightmares. For fuck's sake, put it in the bin. I did put it in the bin, Angela said, pausing by the threshold to straighten said picture with her free hand. 10 times. And you always tell me to put it back because it's your anchor, whatever that means. It's a fine painting anyway, one of your best. I have no idea what it is, but those slabs of overlapping color really do jump off the canvas. It's horrendous. I was stoned when I did it, like all the rest. And the idiot sheep lap them up. Pretentious twats with more money than sense, putting value on my neuroses. So true, Angela nodded, leaving the room. But at least they made you a fortune. Now, don't nod off before I come back with your cocoa. She said the same thing every night, winking at the lady of the house, whose head propped up on 2 Hungarian goose-down pillows was glaring daggers. I might have to drink it myself. Don't you dare touch my butler's chocolate, young lady, Muriel called as she pulled the door shut. It's Cadbury's we get for you, and you better fucking drink it. With the thick slab of mahogany secured in the doorframe, Muriel's shrill voice faded, and Angela's giggle turned to a chuckle as she made her way downstairs. Miserable Muriel. Moaning Muriel. Malicious Muriel, but also her Muriel, and despite her contrariness, she loved her. Nobody could put up with her for long. Not her husband, who she said passed away to escape her. Not her kids, who she said found careers in faraway countries to avoid having to visit. Which was good for Angela, who was used to dealing with foul-mouthed, cantankerous old biddies, having looked after her mother for years. It meant she got the gig of a lifetime as a live-in nurse and maid to a world-renowned, reclusive, abstract artist, free food and board, the run of a manor on private land in Wexford, surrounded by nature. What more could a 30-year-old carer of the elderly, sick of working endless shifts in soulless hospitals, and keen to fulfill her ambition of providing one-on-one personal caregiving, ask for, other than a cup of butler's chocolate before bed? Reaching the bottom of the stairs and turning towards the kitchen, she fished her phone from her pocket to check the notification she'd felt buzz in some minutes before. WhatsApp from Freddie. "I'm here. Is the cranky old bitch asleep yet?" Shaking her head, Angela used her thumb to type. Not a bitch. Eccentric. And no, not yet. Making her chocolate. Out soon. Hope the pizza's ordered. Phone back in pocket. She made her way down a hall lined with photos featuring everything but family, friends, and Muriel's art. Because she had no friends, hated her family, and her art terrified her. Shouldering her way through another thick door into the kitchen. The back door stood open, and it was freezing. The chill October temperatures having made themselves at home. "What the hell?" said Angela, placing the tray on the marble-topped kitchen island. "Freddie, I told you. You can't come into the main house. You'll get me fired." She couldn't see Freddie, but she knew she was there because the door had definitely been shut, and she was the only other person with access to the property. Something Muriel had reluctantly agreed to, on the proviso that her boyfriend only came over between 9 and 10 on weekends. Rules, of course, were made to be broken, and it was now 9:30 on Wednesday, with a night of pizza, beer, and Love Island catch-ups to look forward to. And were you raised in a barn? God, Freddie, close the door at least. As she hurried to shut out the cold, she caught a glimpse of movement by the fireplace and tensed herself, waiting for Frederica to wrap her arms around her and lift her off the floor, spin her around, and kiss her. She giggled in anticipation. "Just be quiet, okay? Her music's on, but I swear she has a sixth sense. She always seems to know when." Raquel. The odd-sounding words were guttural, rasping, nails on chalkboard jarring, and Angela felt her blood run cold as the door clicked into place. and she smelt something rotten. Freddy? She knew it wasn't Freddy, but she turned anyway, to stare in horror at the bulbous, slug-skinned thing lurching towards her. A dozen yellow eyes in a mantis-like head, blood dribbling from fleshy mandibles as it swung one of many barb-covered tentacles at her head, slamming her hard to the floor. Muriel, because you like Barry Manilow. Sarcastic bitch. I do in my shite. Muriel had thrown off her duvet and swung her spindly legs off the mattress, slipped her bony feet into fluffy slippers, and wobbled to the dresser, where her phone was plugged in to charge, and from which the odious lyrics of Copacabana were oozing. Awful, Muriel spat, snatching up the phone to swipe at its screen with a withered finger. Fucking awful. How do I get George on this thing? Her efforts to navigate the Spotify home screen were interrupted when her eyes went to the canvas over the dresser, causing her to shiver and moan. Awful, she said again, dropping the phone as Barry sang. She lost her youth, and she lost her Tony. Now she's lost her mind. Told her to put it in the bin. Stupid bitch never listens. I've a mind to send her packing. Her and that long-haired boyfriend of hers. Dresses like a girl. Whatever happened to... She'd tugged the painting off the wall, shuffled to the door, pulled it open, and was about to fling the canvas out when she heard something stumble on the stairs, but only after being staggered by the smell of rotten fruit or vegetables, a smell that activated in her head a buried memory, like the image on the canvas, which suddenly flared to life in her mind's eye. She was led by the hand from the tent in the forest to the light in the night, by a shadow, looking back for help, seeing her father in his bag by the campfire, shouting, "Daddy, we're not alone." To no response, shivering in her nightdress, pine needles stabbing her bare feet, when she looked forward again, in response to the shadow telling her its name, she was entering the light and finding it filled with an indescribable array of frightening objects, machines and devices, glowing in bright colors. A chair, which she was placed into, to be pushed towards a hulking monster that reached dozens of wriggling tentacles towards her, making her scream. Arnold? She surprised herself by muttering, as her knees gave out and she collapsed, landing with her head outside her door, turned towards the source of the smell, towards the glistening black thing that was lurching up the stairs on lumpy legs, like a bipedal squid out of water, black as tar, drooling blood, tentacles whipping in the air. "Arnold," she said again, though she didn't know why, just that the name had entered her head when she recognized the odor, an odor she'd smelled only once in her life and forgotten, an odor she remembered now as memories of that night in June 41 exploded in her mind like Luftwaffe bombs. The night she wandered off during a camping trip with her family and got lost in the woods for 3 days. Unknown colors, unidentifiable shapes, morphing, mutating, surging around her like waves, and amongst them, yellow eyes, drooling pincers, tentacles in her mouth, wriggling deep, filling her throat. "Are you Arnold?" Muriel asked, pushing herself up to kneeling, watching the monster approach. "Did you take me away?" The terrifying beast of many tentacles reached the top of the stairs, brought its insectile head level with hers, narrowed its sulfur yellow eyes. Words that sounded like crotchet, verakel came from its blood-smeared mandibles, and Muriel straightened in defiance, remembering the sounds, remembering the smell, remembering it. "Did you take me?" she demanded, as a long-sought understanding of why she hurt the way she hurt, and dreamt the things she dreamt, and channeled the visions she was plagued with finally materialized. "You filthy alien pervert!" The creature drew itself up to full height, spread its pincers wide, and issued an ear-splitting shriek that sprayed droplets of blood on Muriel's face. "You stole my life!" The fiery 87-year-old spat, struggling to her feet as the monster hissed. "You filled me with hate and anger. Tusak verakel," it said, stepping closer, swinging its tentacles back to Mu'il. It was Angela, appearing on the monster's back, wrapping her arms around its neck, her face a mask of horror, bloody and torn, flap of skin dangling from one cheek, lips burst, eyes swollen, glaring. "One," she forced past mangled tongue. "Call Porice." The alien monster thing shrieked and thrashed and slammed itself into the wall, reaching up and back, coiling tentacles around Angela's head. Muriel, snapped from the fugue-like state she'd drifted into by Angela's appearance, felt delayed panic race through her and turned, tottered back into her room, swung the door shut, and reached for her phone, still connected to its charging cable on the dresser. "I've been alive forever," Barry crooned, "and I wrote the very first song." For the second time in as many minutes, the old lady's trembling hands gathered up the phone, then dropped it again as the door burst open. An airborne, headless Angela flying through, slamming into Muriel, and knocking them both to the floor. "Stupid bitch," she thought, propping herself up on her elbows, feeling a heavy weight on her legs, knowing without looking it was Angela. Fat lot of good she was. Should have got rid of her ages ago. Probably let that bastard get in while she was canoodling with... Wait, Arnold? Was that really Arnold? I remember him taking my hand while I peed. Before she could finish the thought, the window over her bed exploded, and millions of shards of razor-sharp glass filled the room, lacerating her arms, legs, and face. Arnold. When the alert came through, he was 18 parsecs away on Vestron 7, helping to quell an uprising organized by the anarchic Micropian Party in advance of upcoming elections. And he cursed himself for falling for the ploy, although he'd been transferred to the president's personal security division. The rebel leader, Plikvar, knew he wouldn't be able to resist returning to his homeworld to help the ground troops subdue the dissidents. He had knowledge of the land that would prove invaluable to their efforts, so it wasn't a stretch to predict what he would do when he heard of the unrest. Anti-libertarian, Micropian scum tarnishing his beautiful Vestropolis? Unthinkable. Arnold Edibold couldn't stand by while such a violation occurred, and he hadn't. But by abandoning his post to rejoin his regiment, he'd left his asset unguarded and given Plikvar an opportunity to damage Turanian unity. He would be banished to the frozen wastes for such an indiscretion. So as soon as he received news of the security breach from the capital, he knew what machinations were afoot and commandeered a starhopper to take him from Vestron to Earth. A trip through the inner cosmos that normally took several hours, but he accomplished in one as he raced to avert disaster, a feat he was sure he had failed when he teleported down to the grounds of the manor and discovered the remains of a human female scattered across the lawn. "I'm too late," was his first thought. "We will lose the elections. The anarchists will seize power. The Turanian nation will fall, and I will live out my days on an ice-cold rock near Cetron, where his second, third, fourth, and fifth." Then he heard sounds of commotion from a room on the second floor and realized he still had a chance. He raced to the wall, used his tentacles to climb it, eyes narrowing into slits as he prepared for battle, reaching the window and smashing through into the sleeping quarters of the one he'd sworn to protect. Muriel McCandless, now much older than she'd been when he left his post 2 days before. 14 years older, to be precise. She was on the floor, under a corpse, covering her head with twig-like arms as glass rained down around her. Arnold landed on a pink platform under the window as the assassin pounced into the room, placed a foot on the small of Muriel's back, snaked its tentacles down towards her head. It glared at him while it coiled its limbs around her neck. "Cratchet, Verakel," it snarled, and Arnold looked on in defeat, knowing he couldn't do anything before the rebel ripped the head off the human. They'd hacked the capital's data files. They'd found who they were looking for. They'd determined her location and knew they had time to take her out. They'd put a plan in motion, and it had worked. They were seconds away from causing an election upset. Unless the president would not be happy. But there was only one thing he could do. "Daddy, we're not alone," he said in perfect English, mimicking the voice of the 5-year-old girl in the woods. The only thing she'd said beyond screaming when he took her from her family 2 weeks before. The words they'd recorded and used, buried in her subconscious as a trigger to put her mind in a coma when needed. Beneath the rebel's foot, Muriel's body contorted, spine snapping, head twisting, neck breaking, eyes staring up at Arnold. Fuck you, Arnold," she said. "You evil bastard." Her final word trailed off as her head exploded, and from the hole in her neck came Vera Kell, howling as she grew from shrunken embryo to full-size adult in a matter of moments. The rebel fell back, tentacles around the emerging president, becoming entangled with hers as they grew from her torso. It was trapped, and it hissed, and it roared. Watching Vera Kell's head fully form, her eyes blink open and stare. It took her a second to get her bearings, but once she had, she didn't wait, opening a second vertical mouth in her throat and spraying a jet of corrosive acid from her guts. An act only females of the Turanian race could perform. An act Arnold could not watch. He stared at his feet while the anarchist screamed at the unstable pink slab he was standing on, and the earthbird illustrated puffy material, balled up at its end. Pretty, he thought. Looks soft. Inviting. Why don't we have such niceties on Arnold, the president said, snapping him to attention and bringing his gaze back up, avoiding the steaming mass of goo by the door. Yes, ma'am. What transpired today? Why the intrusion? Anarchists, ma'am. Pleekvar hacked the capital's databanks, found out you were vacationing on Earth in a human host with me watching over. Saw it as a chance to take you out of the running for re-election. Initiated an uprising on Vestron through 7 to lure me away. Sadly, I fell for it. Thought they could use a local to help. Then he sent someone to eliminate you. I see. But you found out? Capital agents got wind of it and alerted me. I returned at once, but too late to do anything other than wake you. I apologize, ma'am. Vera Kell grunted, looking around the room. Fuck, she said, in her characteristic crude way. Ma'am, couldn't even get 2 shitting weeks to myself before starting on the campaign trail. This was a good life, too. Fun, but interrupted right before the end. What bullshit. Human passings are the best fucking bits. Sorry, ma'am. Don't apologize. I'm alive, aren't I? Thanks to you. Did you say that asshole Pleekvar orchestrated a rebellion on your homeworld? Yes, ma'am. Is it quelled? No, ma'am. I had to leave before... Then what are we fucking waiting for? You have a hopper, I presume? Let's get back to it. I'm in the mood for melting more anarchists. And then I'm going to kick the living shit out of Pleekvar. And so, exiting a crime scene the likes of which had never before been witnessed, Vera Kell and R. Nold left Manilow behind, singing, "We'll just go on burning bright somewhere in the night," the final petition of the beast. I trust that your patience and historically proven aptitude for distilling the truth of events from the muddled fog of contentious viewpoints will inhibit you from leaping to a firm and resolute condemnation of my actions until you hear me out to the full. Let us see if I cannot, in time, convince you of my benevolence by offering another perspective on the events which preceded my downfall, and which led me to assume this sorrowful state in which you now observe me. A perspective which, I hasten to warn you, runs contrary on many points to those you have, no doubt, already encountered. In exchange for your borrowed time, I promise to inform you of what really happened regarding a topic we can agree truly matters: the well-being of none other than my human host. The rumors you have heard are true. I am soldered by mechanisms far beyond the understanding of the human sciences, in an intimate manner, to the psychological tendencies of the human mind. I must again plead with you to discard your prescribed opinions regarding this arrangement of living. Any beast or person misunderstood will stand by me, and perhaps you also will join us in testifying that the misunderstood are always critiqued with unwarranted harshness. I have borne the most hideous names hurled at me by those who fear and misunderstand of my role. I have gone by many disparaging titles throughout history, and am only too aware of the multitude of unsavory images attached to the notion of a parasitic relationship. May I suggest as a substitute for this baseless hatred the fondness of a pet for its owner? After all, I do more than leech. Like your beloved animal companions, I am also capable of altering the mood of my host, as you shall soon see. My host was a young boy when I transferred myself from his parents' minds to his. His psychological foundations had been set years before, and I arrived to find a habitat much to my liking. Between the folds of his thoughts, I made myself a home. I had left a part of me behind, of course, in the minds of the parents. Their family had served me for generations, and it was a light task for one as skilled as I in the art of suggestion, and in possession of such intimate knowledge of their inner workings, to fan the mother's insecurities, just so that, while remaining completely imperceptible to their untrained eye, my little whispers achieved nothing short of the legal separation of the boy's parents. I then secured my spot in the boy's mind by magnifying his sense of responsibility for his parents' misery. Thenceforward, the slightest reminder that he was unlovable had him wriggling deliciously in my grasp. It was thus, with my claws sunk deep into his skull, that I ushered him into high school. His emotional trajectory was the most promising of all his dear family members yet. Not a single friend he made the first month of school. The very weight of me crumpled his posture as he wandered, friendless, through the halls. I steered his mood between the scylla of an overly morose disposition, certain to be noticed by peers and trigger the arrival of help in the form of a school counselor or therapist, and the Charybdis of an optimism that would grant him the strength to shrug me off. I would have achieved this ideal flawlessly were it not for that damned girl who transferred to his school and was placed catastrophically in the seat across from my host. Were she my charge, I would have doubled down on her insecurities at the first sign of that cheerful, infectious laugh and blasphemously pristine, consistent mood. If not out of a sense of duty to myself, then out of respect for my colleagues, who work so hard to keep precisely her sort of energy away from the vicinity of our hosts. Before the week was out, the boy was going home, smiling to himself at the memory of their last conversation. Thankfully, I had conditioned him in preparation for such catastrophes. The reminder of the tension that awaited him at home when he stepped off the bus was enough to lull his mind back to its usual state of a miserable hibernation. Yet I knew this girl was no patch of sun or tasty treat. She was here to stay. It frightened me how deftly she slipped under my nose. After generations of thankless, uphill labor, I was faced with the prospect of relinquishing all in submission to her smile. The memory of the warm undertones that bubbled up from deep within the boy at the memory of her smile causes me still to shudder. I irked him. I belittled him. I downright scolded him in my best imitation of his father's voice for his cheek. You can imagine, then, my shock when he steeled his nerve and neglected to drink from the sweet stream of self-pity I offered him. He told me himself that this girl was worth the pain, a revelation that gave me a most unpleasant shock. For centuries, my strategy had been to capitalize on the self-pity of my hosts by maintaining their focus entirely and crushingly on themselves. The bitterness this tactic unfailingly produces kept his parents under my thumb until their separation. I expected the same trap would ensnare their child also, but my suggestions fell suddenly on deaf ears. He had a drive to know this girl, and his deep-set belief that he was essentially unloved and unlovable did nothing to curb his momentum. In all my carefully executed precautions, I had not foreseen his sexual drive would rear its head in this manner. I chastise myself for the mistake. Had I studied more carefully the behavioral patterns of his father, molded my contraptions to better accommodate the boy's hereditary quirks, I might have prevented this disaster from transferring. As it stands, the animal drive to reproduce is, like me, powerful and resilient, and cannot be permanently subdued, only temporarily diminished. He surprised even himself, I think, at his boldness and forwardness, looking back on what he did next. During a break in class came the briefest of silences, pregnant with the potential for shadow-shattering community. And then he spoke, and at that moment I perceived within myself a distinct and piercing horror that stemmed from the sudden realization that my source of life had suddenly begun to slip away, like sand. No, like water, between my sharpened claws. The boy and the girl talked on stools in the back of the classroom, opposite the wide windows, with the morning sun on their faces. His willingness to reveal his most intimate thoughts, including those I had pointedly enforced on him to be the cause of his unlovableness, to this girl, a near total stranger to him, unknown less than a week ago, it frightened me. So I bit him hard on the tip of his ear. It was too risky, you see, to allow a conversation of that nature to continue. They might have begun to discuss me, the boy's negative self-talk, and he might have let the cat out of the bag and deprived me of the strength that secrecy affords. He was still grimacing from the pinch of the memory of some past embarrassment when the teacher resumed class. But the girl looked worryingly at him, and I at her, for I knew the fight was far from won. Before I continue, I feel compelled to address my apparent neglect of the rules. You must understand, taking into account the urgency of my case, why it was necessary for me to inflict more than merely psychological torment on my host. Consider the goal I had to achieve. If the result of my admittedly brash action was the immediate embarrassment, the later regret, and the plummeted social confidence of my host, 3 dimensions firmly underneath my jurisdiction, can the rules really be said to have been abandoned? Even so, I trust you to keep the details of my misstep within the sphere of your knowledge, and mine only. That afternoon, the boy flopped onto bed, and I robotically conjured his usual evening diet of social comparison and self-loathing that bites so poignantly on the teenage psyche. I had just settled in for a mellow evening of brooding and isolation when the boy received a friend request from the girl. Soon they were volleying messages happily like 2 ducks in a pond. I spewed my most horrid concoction of degrading insults in his ear, but the boy took even my most clever and piercing threats, and and told them to her verbatim, as I had whispered them to him. The stupid boy believed my work to be a product of his own imagination, but the untruth of his utterances was instantly checked by the girl, and the secret of my existence was out. I felt the shame and secrecy drain from his mind like the contents of a filthy toilet, all at once unclogged. You would have screamed too if you had been there. Your life's work transformed in an instant to shining acceptance and relief. She urged him to speak with the school counselor on Monday, and walked him down to the counseling office herself when I attempted to undermine the urgency of his plight. I found us face to face with my old host, whose emotions I could not comprehend nearly as well from this side of his face. The counselor did not return my fiery gaze, although he noticed me the moment we stepped into his office, but gave the boy a long, sad look. I see what's happening here. Do I need antidepressants, sir? Asked my host. Oh no, just a daily dose of self-acceptance. If I have revealed too much of myself and my motivations, so that you look down upon me as the villain of this tale, believe me now when I tell you I have done so for a special purpose. For do I not also possess those same heroic traits of determination, bravery, creativity in my methods, and consistency in my effort, all in service to the biological imperative to survive and reproduce, for which you applaud and congratulate the boy? What does it matter, really, if my methods are unconventional, my form perhaps shocking to you, my feeding style abnormal? I would caution you against delivering judgments colored so heavily by dislike for the unfamiliar and the unknown. What is the difference between me, who seek to preserve my existence by any means, even the grossest, and him, who takes the opinion of his friend into account before making a decision to the same end and purpose? I assure you, it is a difference, not in type, but in degree only. He fought harder, more ruthlessly than I, and so he has won. I, who held the boy's leash, now cower, packed away and forgotten in a dark and lonely corner of his mind. He does not visit or feed me, except occasionally and by accident. My strength is waned, my spirit is dehydrated, my form considerably shrunken. With the addition of communal support, that loathsome girl had friends and introduced them to him. I doubt I shall ever drink from the boy's vitality again. What pains me most is the thought that his and her children will be reared without the guiding influence of my whispers on their young minds. I will be hard-pressed to imitate to his children the voice of their father when they have not been primed for years with the backdrop of his incessant complaints. The boy has abandoned me. I shiver, cold and alone. But you are still here, warm and receptive, believing in the truth of my whispers, attentive to my voice. You will let me in, won't you? Speed. Fate. Hi, Buck. Thanks for taking part in the recent Speed Fate speed dating event and submitting your feedback. We hope you enjoyed the evening. Please find below a copy of the comments you left for each of your dates. You will receive feedback submitted about you in a separate mail. Should any of those you said yes to also say yes to you, we will forward each of you a copy of your contact information so you can get in touch. The very best of luck, and thanks for choosing Speed Fate. The Speed Fate team. Buck Tucker dated the following people: 18th July 2023, and left the following feedback. Mandy Rogers, age 37, self-help guru. You said, fun person. Quick smile, bubbly. The conversation flowed from the get-go. Love the curls. She had so much to say, and was passionate about her interests, even if they were a bit airy-fairy. If there's one thing I respect, it's passion about your subject of choice. Refreshing to meet someone as firm a believer in destiny as Mandy is. Could talk to her for hours about sliding doors and parallel universes. Would love to delve deeper into her thoughts on escapable fate. Great date. Would you like to meet Mandy again? Yes. Evelyn Pierce, age 35. School teacher. You said, Evelyn is a dark horse, shy to start, but relaxed as the date went on. I was nervous too, because she's very smart. I felt dumb by comparison. Very impressed by her career. She seems to be a great teacher, very professional. I get the impression she could be successful at anything she turns her hand to, even partnering with me. She has the voice of authority. It just needs to be strengthened. She could broaden my horizons on intellectual topics, and I could teach her about life outside the classroom. Definitely see potential here. Would you like to meet Evelyn again? Yes. Katerina Cruz, age 38, physical therapist. You said. Not much to say about Katerina, except wow. I didn't know drop dead gorgeous was an actual thing, but as soon as I left her table, I felt part of me die, or at least abandon ship so it could stay behind. Her eyes really drew me in, could get lost in them for hours, not to mention everything else. Her English isn't great, but that didn't matter. Her body language did the talking. Can tell she doesn't take shit from anyone. And with those muscles, you wouldn't want to forget her birthday. Bit intimidating, but that's a turn on. So it's a yes from me. Would you like to meet Katerina again? Yes. Ashley Davenport, age 41, office admin. You said, Ashley is a bit mousy. Not my type physically, but has an air of mystery about her, which is attractive. Not sure why she was at the event. She was an ice queen, and I had to work hard to make conversation. Wasn't very successful. Didn't find out much about her, other than that she has cats and works in admin. I'm not a cat person, but I have a dog who hates cats, so he would probably chase them off if we got together. Pretty sure she just had her walls up. I have a feeling I could get her to loosen up. I am 100% sure it would be worth it. It would be nice to see her show some emotion. Challenge accepted. Would you like to meet Ashley again? Yes, to Buck Tucker from Speed Fate Team. Date, 19th July, 2023, 16:31. Subject, your speed. Fate. Feedback. Hi Buck. Thanks again for attending the recent Speed Fate speed dating event. We have now compiled the feedback we received from the people you met and have included it below. You will receive the contact information for anyone who said yes, that you said yes to also in a separate mail. The best of luck, and thanks for choosing Speed Fate. The Speed Fate team. Mandy Rogers, age 37, yoga teacher. They said, Buck was a pleasure to talk with. Very open-minded, and I didn't get the impression he was humoring me when I was rattling on about chakras and meditation. He seemed to be genuinely fascinated. Was interesting hearing his views on the afterlife and reincarnation. He carries a lot of nomadic energy and seems to be as much of a free spirit as I am, even if yoga and mindfulness aren't his thing. Would definitely like to bounce more ideas off him. I promised him a tarot reading if we meet again, so here's hoping. Would they like to meet you again? They said, yes. Evelyn Pierce, age 35, school teacher. They said, Buck is great. He's a lot more adventurous than me, very extrovert, which is exciting. I need someone like that to get me out of my comfort zone. Raising 2 teenagers as a full-time single dad is not an easy task, so I take my hat off to him. Also impressed by his role as a part-time scout leader, setting time aside to take kids camping and teach them about the great outdoors. That's inspirational. Would definitely be interested in getting to know him better. Always a sucker for a good dad. Would they like to meet you again? They said, yes. Katerina Cruz, age 38, physical therapist. They said, Buck is interesting, man. Similar interest in keep fit, training for marathon. Now, I think he has a lot of work to do, but is good. He has goal to work for. Perhaps he needs some help training. Little out of shape, but I don't have heart to say. Cute smile, kind eyes, love bearded man. Also interested in his musical career. Must be nice to date with guitarist of upcoming rock band. I think I should like to see this. Would they like to meet you again? They said, yes. Ashley Davenport, age 41, office admin. They said, God loves a trier. I gave him nothing, but he kept on trucking. Bonus points for that. If I was him, I would have given up in the first minute, like everyone else. 5 must have been torture. Really hate this shit. Only did it 'cause my friends signed me up, and I never would have heard the end of it. Whatever. Promise I'll make more of an effort next time. Not that he's going to want to meet me again. He'd probably sooner throw himself under a bus. Would they like to meet you again? They said, yes, to Buck Tucker from Fate. Team. Date 20th July 2023, 11:30. Subject, your speed. Fate. Contacts. Hi Buck. Please find attached contact information for your matches from the speed date event you attended on July 16th, 2023. We hope you had an enjoyable experience and have our fingers crossed. One of your matches will be the one. We've had a number of success stories to date, some leading to marriage, and are always interested in hearing how things go. The best of luck, and thanks for choosing Speed Fate. The Speed Fate team, dressed in his least shabby suit, well-worn blue check shirt, newly bought navy tie, and doused in the least repulsive knockoff Hugo Boss aftershave he could find. Tucker drew a well-practiced smile onto his goatee-framed jaw and slid into the seat opposite his date, the redhead in the white dress, whose hair was tied back in a hastily knotted ponytail and whose name was displayed on the sticker attached to her chest. Evelyn, he announced, clasping his hands together and placing his elbows on the table. So good to see you. I was delighted to hear you wanted to meet me again. I felt we had a good connection, even though we only talked for 5 minutes. How have you been? How are those school kids? Hope they've been listening to teacher across the white-clothed tabletop, past the bottle of champagne chilling in a stainless steel cooler, 2 sparkling champagne flutes, and the candle protruding from a chrome holder. Evelyn met Tucker's gaze and swallowed the lump of saliva that had stuck in her throat. He hadn't thought it possible for her to be more nervous than she'd been at the speed date, especially since they knew each other now. But there she was, eyes darting about, glancing at the people either side of them, beads of sweat visible on her brow. It was going to be harder than he thought to get her to loosen up, he realized. But that didn't matter. In a way, he found her nervousness endearing. They're fine, she said, her voice coming out a whisper, forcing her to clear her throat. They're good. They don't give me trouble. I never have to reprimand anyone. Really? There's not a single troublemaker in the bunch? What age did you say they were? Tucker reached forward abruptly, suit sleeve riding up his arm, and closed his hand around the neck of the champagne bottle, causing Evelyn to jump, eyes darting to his unclean fingers. 14, she said, returning her eyes to his as he took the bottle from the cooler and started undoing the wire holding its cork in place. And 15. No, honestly, nothing like that. I've never had to punish anyone, if that's what you mean. I see, Tucker said, narrowing his eyes as if to peer into her mind. Bit boring, isn't it? All that authority, and there's not a single obnoxious teenager for you to use it on? I find that hard to believe. As a former teenager in a school full of stuck-up bitches and bullying brats, I find that extremely hard to believe. But hey, if that's what you're saying, pop! The cork shot from the bottle with explosive energy, making the nervous teacher jump again. I'll take your word for it. How about your colleagues? They all super nice, too? Come on, you can be honest. Bet there's a couple of real shits, right? Get off on tormenting the kids? Probably a few pervs, too. Pedo bastards? I know there were at my school. Oh, I know. Can think of at least 3 motherfuckers who deserved to have their dicks cut off, sitting forward, extending his arm, pouring bubbly liquid into his date's glass. He glared as she shook her head softly, almost imperceptibly, and sucked in her lips. He snorted, smiled, a shake of the head as he finished pouring, and moved the bottle to his own glass. You don't have to be so nervous, Evelyn. It's just me and you. You can tell me anything. I'm very open-minded, a man of the world. I know the way things work. I'm familiar with what goes on behind closed doors. In response to his comment about it being just him and her eyes had flicked to the left and right again, almost as if to remind herself there were people around them, though it shouldn't have been necessary, considering how boisterous they were. Don't worry about them, Tucker said, depositing the champagne bottle back into the cooler with a clatter and crunch. What we talk about is none of their business, and vice versa. Let's just focus on getting to know each other. He lifted his glass, took a sip, let the bubbles pop in his mouth and tickle his throat. Effervescent. Evelyn watched him return the glass to the table with dampening eyes and quivering lip, bubbles spinning in the amber liquid in the untouched glass before her. So you're not a mean teacher, and you have no asshole students, and everyone you work with is lovely. Okay, I get it. They've conditioned you well. Turning a blind eye is second nature. That's okay. That can be fixed. You just have to open your eyes, see things for what they are. Identify the evil in people. Acknowledge it. Accept that it's there to be destroyed. And do you know the best way to do that? He crossed his arms, lifted an eyebrow, cocked his head. And no, she said, the first tear escaping an eye and running down a scratched, grime-covered cheek. I don't. Buck, you know, I think you got the wrong impression of me. I'm not a bad person. I treat people well. I don't. The best way to do that. He cut her off. craning his head closer to hers, his nose almost touching the trembling candle flame, is to find it in yourself and expose it. Draw it out into the light, like a putrid, rotting vampire. Set it free and watch the havoc it wreaks. Once you know what your own darkness is capable of, you'll be able to recognize it in others. And then you'll be able to do something about it. Like me. It's simple, really. So come on, let's go on a journey of self-discovery. Aren't you drinking? Please, Buck. I don't think I'm what you're looking for. I think we should... Have you ever cheated on someone, Evelyn? Deliberately or accidentally, thinking it was okay because, it wasn't that serious and they weren't invested. No, I never. Have you ever lied to someone to let them down gently, or just because you wanted some attention, to be wined and dined, treated like a princess, to pass the time? Buck, I want to stop, please. Have you ever hit anyone? A sibling? A child? Have you ever lost your cool and lashed out blindly with a hand or a foot? Hurt someone out of anger or desire? Please, so you don't use your authority to punish students. How about something else? Have you seduced one? All those virile young teenagers staring you up and down. Have you ever taken advantage of it? Tasted forbidden fruit? Or maybe not them, maybe one of their parents, maybe a bit of home-wrecking sates an urge. I don't know why you're doing this. I don't know what kind of person you think I am, but I'm not. Have you ever thought about killing someone, Evelyn? Pulling a cord tight around their neck and watching them choke, sticking a knife in their guts and twisting it, enjoying the warmth of the warm, sticky blood that... Jesus, God, somebody help me, please, somebody help me. She screamed, she stomped, she shook, she howled and yelled and roared. Teardrops flew from her eyes, but nobody helped. Oh, Evelyn, said Tucker, after allowing her a moment. I had a good feeling about you. I thought if I could get you to see the light and come around to my way of thinking, we'd have fun expelling assholes from the world. But it's not going to happen, is it? She continued to scream, wrenching and twisting in the chair she was tied to. So he shrugged and took hold of the candle, slid it from its holder, revealed the blade that protruded from its base. The teacher's eyes went wide, and her voice cracked as he angled it towards her throat, leaned further forward, and swiped left. A second mouth fell open in the smooth, pale skin of her throat, and she gasped, gurgled, thrashing more urgently as a spine-chilling groan crept from her soul. Tucker sat back and watched. No glee showed on his face. No excitement. He watched blankly. The knife held loose. The thin layer of blood on its blade, sprinkling scarlet splashes on the tablecloth. If there was an air about him at all, as his second hope for a partner fizzled out, it was one of disappointment. He really would have liked her as a soulmate. After a minute, when Evelyn stopped twitching, He checked to ensure his shirt and jacket hadn't been soiled, then slid the candle knife back into its holder, licked his forefinger, extinguished the candle's flame, pushed his chair back, and got up. He took a napkin from the table, dabbed at his mouth as he stepped back, watching his scuffed loafers, careful not to step into the blood that had pooled beneath the chair behind him. The blood that had oozed from boring, not mysterious Ashley. To his left, bound and gagged, Katerina lunged her upper body towards him, impressive arm muscles bulging through the gossamer thin material of the dress he'd clad her in, brown eyes glowering with hate, teeth gnashing behind the black rubber strap that subdued her mouth. The chair was bolted to the floor. Her feet were chained to the chair. Her movement was restricted. He wasn't ready for her yet. A fist to the face, she slumped, head lolling loosely over her chest, to the right of the teacher, in the center of a long, abandoned warehouse. Another dressed table, another pair of chairs, and terrified captive. A puddle of urine, not blood. On the floor around her feet, Tucker fished a lighter from his pocket as he stepped around the corpse of bleeding Evelyn, lit the wick of the candle dagger protruding from chrome scabbard. Lighter, back in pocket, he took hold of the rubber gag around the girl's head, pulled it off, relishing the snap as it came loose. "Please," she said, all wild, rabbit eyes and mascara-smeared face. "Don't hurt me. I'll do anything. I promise. Anything." He drew a well-practiced smile onto his goatee-framed jaw and slid into the seat opposite his date, the blonde in the ivory-white dress, whose curls hung loose around her face, and whose name was displayed on a sticker. "Mandy," he announced, spreading his hands to greet her and bowing theatrically. "So good to see you. I was delighted to hear you wanted to meet me again. I believe you had some thoughts on escapable fate? Red rum." "Cut!" Leonard shouted, snapping the movie slate shut, dizzy with the relief that comes after the end of a shoot. "Thanks so much, Francis. You're good to go." "No, thank you, Lenny," Francis Keaton replied, shaking Leonard's hand. "I hope we meet again." "Me too. Good luck with your Nespresso adverts." "Where's Liliana?" Leonard called out to Travis, who shrugged his shoulders. "Travis, you reek of whiskey. It's called method acting. I had to do it all the time for Streetcar." "Ah, there you are." Liliana Hoyt, who seemed to be winning every acting award going, was grabbed by Leonard and manhandled by two of the producers onto the set. "Hey!" she screamed. "Get off me!" "You could have dressed up," Leonard said, as Liliana got thrown onto the bed. "Actually, it's fine. Just pull the comforter over her." One of the producers threw some rope around her hands before tying them to the headboard. "Leonard, what the fuck is going on? Where's Margot?" "What about her?" The same producer silenced Liliana, her face bluing in mute appeal, with a strip of duct tape. Suddenly, her legs were flailing, writhing, kicking, helpless in the face of the director's conspiratorial will. And action. An unsteady Travis walked onto set, holding a chainsaw, its roar drowning out Liliana's muffled howls. Where its teeth kissed her leg, blood, first a trickle, and then a surge, began to mist the whole set. Travis, stop! Margot Devine, the actress who had claimed the starring role, walked in at that very moment. Is everything okay? Liliana called me about an extra scene. She clapped her hands to her face in horror once she saw Liliana's dismembered limbs. Oh my God, please, detective, I don't want to watch it anymore, pleaded Leonard, turning his head away from the footage. Detective Montrose switched the computer off before turning his attention back to Leonard, whose face was still blank with anxiety. You do know how this looks, don't you, Mr. Leary? Montrose said. Yes, of course I do. I mean, it's there on screen for all to see. You directing Mr. Waterman to saw Ms. Hoyt in half. It was a prop. Okay. Montrose wrote this down. And this was for your movie, was it? Yes. A prison without walls? Yes, Leonard replied begrudgingly. You know, it took 2 weeks at a writing camp in Prague to come up with that. For a moment, Leonard felt it was just him and the detective at the center of the universe, the tape recorder and folders props, and the light bulb swinging pendulum-like above, illuminating the room with an unwelcome light, only there for an added theatrical frisson. Mr. Leary, I'm confused, to say the least, Montrose said. Not one of you has a motive against Ms. Hoyt. Can we please just rewind, going back from Ms. Hoyt's death to the day you started? What, again? Please? If you wouldn't mind. 24th October, 3 weeks into filming, after 10 seconds of looking furiously for Travis, I found him perched on the banquet in the corner, his arms and legs splayed across the leather. It reminded of that scene in Pulp Fiction when Pumpkin and Honey Bunny ransack the diner. Travis fit the aesthetic perfectly. Even though he was a star of the stage, he could well have been a vagrant. Sorry, I was hungry, he said, like a naughty kid, with a chocolate mustache and a half-eaten banana split in front of him. Would you like anything? No, I'm fine. I can't stay long. Travis's hair was incredibly greasy, striking that unfortunate balance between being neither curly nor straight. Jesus, your breath reeks, Travis. The scent was a mix of red wine, cheroots, and patchouli, all rolled into one. Anyway, I think you know why I'm here. Do I? Yes, Travis, you do. It's about your wife, Margot. I don't have a wife. Oh my God. In the movie, Travis. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Margot and James McClane, played by Liliana and Travis, began life as a vision of cold, jodhpur-wearing elitism. But when they went bankrupt, were forced to downsize and move across from the Feldmans, whose marriage they ended up shattering. Liliana dropped quite the bomb the other day, I continued. Travis furrowed his eyebrows. Sorry, who? Liliana. She plays your wife, Travis. Jesus Christ. Oh, okay. Sorry. I don't get involved with the other actors. Holding my nose so as not to inhale any more alcohol breath, I tried one more time to get through to him. Liliana wondered if you, as her husband, would kill her in the script. You're the cuckolded alcoholic in the marriage, so it's completely plausible. Oh, that's fine, Travis said, the red wine talking. Really? It would require you to film some extra scenes. Are you available next week? Yes. Great. Thanks. I gave him a slap on the shoulder. She says it's because she doesn't want any trouble, but she wants to be a main character. Audiences love murder. I think that's the problem with movies these days. You don't have to explain yourself, Travis reassured me. Let's kill this bitch. 22nd October. My muscles coiled as soon as I caught sight of her. Liliana, who I am pretty sure was my least favorite, which was no mean feat, had called me unexpectedly to run through some things. And I got the feeling it wasn't to discuss the movie. It never is. The restaurant we had agreed to meet in was an upscale eatery on the fringes of the town center, the sort of place reserved for illicit liaisons and big ultimatums. I knew Liliana spent all her time as an actress, if she wasn't wielding an arc on the silver screen, in places like these, possessing the sought-after elixir that Wangle's 14-course taster, meals and corners tuxedos businessmen into the nooks of dingy bars. Thanks for agreeing to this, Leonard, she said, in her native southern twang, her brazen authenticity chording a jarring note against the coy contentment of the restaurant. Liliana was rakish and spidery, her face so pale as though made of reconstituted porcelain. The cruel origami of her arms stretched to hug me. No, really. Thank you. Have you ordered? I haven't. Great, she said, perusing the menu. You know, I haven't got long, Liliana. I have to dash. It's Lily. And what do you mean you have to dash? You're such a bad liar. What? Let's see how convincingly you can lie about where you were last week, when you saw me and Margot having a go at each other. She picked up the knife, as though she was poised to dissect me. Why are you looking so worried? The waiter arrived, absolving me of this question. He took our orders, looking askance at Liliana as he did so, probably surprised at how underdressed she was. He would be right. It was clear Liliana didn't fit in here. It came to herald a changing of the guard. No longer were places like these populated by the jewel-draped dames who held an ice-bedded coupe in one palm of their hand and the piqued interest of their stupid director in the other, but now overhauled by a new generation, one of them being Liliana, a raven-haired, new-age Janet Leigh. I'll try and be quick, she said, sipping her wine. But Margot Devine, fucking Margot Devine is not a subject I can discuss without completely going batshit crazy. I hope you understand. I don't know what you mean, Liliana. Oh, drop the act, Leonard. You know exactly what I mean. What? You saw us. I saw you. Saw us. What? Oh my God. Don't even try to. When we stopped filming, me and Margot went to... And you, I don't know what you're... Look, I don't care. I know you're lying. All I wanted to tell you is that I know you. I've met directors like you before. A zillion of them. This was a lie. Liliana's showreel was suspiciously short. And I know what gets people like you going, she continued. I stared at her with my eyes wide open, loudly glugging my wine, so the silence she left was even more pronounced. Money, she explained, as though this wasn't obvious. Of course it's money, right? And what's that gotta do with Margot? Haha. It has everything to do with Margot. Liliana leaned in, her breath hot on my cheek. I didn't want to have to tell you this. Obviously, I didn't. Not even my mom knows. But Margot and I, we had a thing some years ago. Liliana bit her lip defiantly, numb with inexpressible loathing. I don't think you can call it a thing, to be honest. But Twitter will have different ideas. It didn't even last a year. I have to say, I'm surprised. I improvised, hiding my face with my glass. Margot's a big star. Exactly. Margot Devine, darling of the acting world, splashed all over the front pages because she's been having an affair with another woman. And not just any woman. The next Neve Campbell, of course. Liliana, I don't... You know who'll come out of this the worst, Leonard. Not me. No. Not even Margot. But you. No one will watch your movie. No one will care. No one will ever want to hire you again. The prospect, although shocking, yet entirely plausible, was a terrifying one. What are you suggesting? I asked. Look, I know this is gonna sound mad, because I know we're so late into the shoot. And I know how hard you've worked on the script. But how about we kill Margot's character off? I just think this is what the script needs. So you want to kill Margot off? Yes. You can give her a big send-off if you like. But I just don't think Margot belongs in this movie. Okay, I said, summoning the waiter for more wine. I'll see what I can do. 14th of October, 2 weeks into filming, I had known these people for just over a month. And I already knew that they were the worst people I had ever met. Margot was a man-hating sociopath. Liliana was a man-eating snake. Travis was a narcissistic man-child. And Francis was simply a very annoying man. Lenny, you with us? Francis called out. I've got to go in 20 minutes. Can we wrap this up, please? Sure. I made my way back to the studio. The custom-made house for the movie, inhabited by Grace and Roger Feldman, played by Margot Devine and Francis Keaton, respectively, was gorgeously uniform and pastel. Something even Martha Stewart would be proud of. Their marriage was literally like something from a TV commercial. something rehearsed, shot, and then left in a studio. Something always destined for the snap of a director's slate. It was so hollow, so unreal, that someone could scrawl over it with a black marker pen, and no one would notice. The Feldmans lived in a world full of Minnie and Roman Castavets, where everything was dystopian and rabid bunny happy, where apples seemed to pick themselves, where lawnmowers began without prompt, and where babies slept without protest. "And that's a wrap," I announce, weak with relief. "I'll see you guys tomorrow, okay?" In what was my only break of the day, I go for a cigarette and watch the world go by. The town, a mass of either failing or fledgling shops, of laundromats and fried chicken, was a buckle in the belt of dusty, apple-knocking America. A montage of sandy browns and russet reds that quite happily elided into one long sepia smudge. And then a shout, a scream, something that threatened to disrupt the even tenor of my walk. "Just leave me alone," they spat, the voice emanating from a woman's head in the distance. "What do you expect me to do?" the blonde girl replied. I inched forward before doubling back when I realized who they were. Margot and Liliana. "Look, I know neither of us could have foreseen this," Liliana said. "But I don't want you trying to talk to me in front of everyone, okay? I think it's fine, Lily. Getting the feeling this conversation wasn't something I should be hearing." I backed up against the wall and bowed my head. Everything had seemed so civil on set up until now. Then again, it was to be expected. Actors could behave like little children. "No, it's not fine, Margot," continued Liliana, spitting fury. "And to make matters worse, they've given me the same fucking name as you. That'll be all over TMZ when they find out about us. Lily, please, do not touch me. Honestly, I swear to God, after we do this, if you come near me again, then I will call the police. Leave me alone." 9th September, the table read. I hated an ensemble cast. This time, luckily, I only had to contend with 4 different personalities. But it was the personalities that was the difficult bit. The 4 elected professionals, the starlet, the treader of boards, the scream queen, and the smarmy one you see on Nespresso adverts, were due at lunchtime, a pretext to pick at finger food and bitch about the agent they all once had in common. It was when I finished putting the food and drinks together that Margot Devine, the first to try my smorgasbord of bread rolls and oil dips, decided to arrive. With her eyes in some sort of half squint, forever suspicious of any gathering of men or any errant camera, Margot had her hair scraped back into a lick of blonde and was wearing an outsize puffer jacket. I pictured her getting bundled into a Land Rover by her press agent, the jacket pulled over her shoulder blades, with pincered fingers, moving as fast as her praying mantis legs would permit, like a Weinstein protege whose daily intake amounted to nothing more than an iceberg lettuce leaf and a cube of blue cheese. "Margot, hi." I greeted her awkwardly, kissing her on both cheeks, feeling the shocking realness of her bones. "There's someone in the elevator coming up," she said, upturning her nose. "I'm not sure he's a part of this. I think he's the one who does the Nespresso adverts." "Francis Keaton? Oh yes, that's the one." "Ah," I said, sawing Francis at the door. Speak of the devil. First shooting to international fame in his early 20s, much in the same mold as Leonardo DiCaprio. Francis Keaton was the nation's sweetheart. With orange skin and one remaining tuft of hair, he was clearly still clinging onto the vestiges of youth. But as he was Francis Delano Keaton, the perfect riposte to any insult, he was most definitely forgiven. One dimply smile from his much-pinched cheek, and you would just swoon. "So, who else we waiting for then?" he asked in his frothy drawl. "Just two more." "Who are they?" "It's not Meryl Streep, is it?" No, not Meryl, unfortunately. It's Travis Waterman and Liliana Hoyt." "Ah, Liliana, the woman of the moment." "Liliana's coming?" Margot asked, tweaking her sleeve. "Yes." "Oh, is there a problem?" "Oh no, we just haven't seen each other since the whole cabin in the woods debacle." "Oh yes," Francis laughed. "Right, bloodbath, wasn't it?" "Ah," I beamed, breaking the awkward silence that came thereafter. "I think that's them now." With an A-list swagger she could only mimic, Liliana Hoyt entered at that exact moment beside Travis Waterman. Liliana, making her name through low-budget art house movies, could not be more different from Travis, who was securely established as the doyen of theater, earning his first Tony nomination for his performance in Othello. I wondered how they would react when they would learn that they were going to be playing a married couple. Which reminded me, the script I would have them read, written by myself of course, was tentatively titled A Prison Without Walls. It was about a married couple in the 1950s, the sort to hold Tupperware parties and send their children to elocution lessons, who find themselves reevaluating their priorities when a new couple moves in across the road. "Hello, Leonard. Good to see you again." We had never met before. "Good evening, Travis," I said, showing them to their seats. The five of us arranged ourselves in the most curious of configurations, with Margot and Travis at one end, and Francis and Liliana at the other. "So, I hope everyone's got the right script," I said, taking charge. "Yes," Travis responded, remarkably quick for someone who had all the zeal of a narcoleptic. "But it says here my character's an alcoholic. Is that—" No. James falls off a wagon when he learns his wife, played by Liliana, is cheating on him. "Is that?" Yep, it was an awkward subject. Everyone knew Travis was an alcoholic ever since his stint in Cat on a hot tin roof. "At least it's not me doing the cheating," Francis quipped. Actually, you are, I corrected. Roger cheats on his wife with Liliana's character. No one thought it appropriate to respond. TMZ had a helicopter above Keaton's mansion for months after he ordered a prostitute to his home while his wife was on vacation. Liliana craned forward, opening her mouth to speak. Leonard, it says here my character's called Margot. Margot. Yes, it's spelled differently. Well, I hope you don't confuse us, Margot interjected. Everyone shot a sideways glance at Margot, sulking in the corner. So, I said, slapping my knees. Shall we begin? It was finally time. We all took a sharp intake of breath before turning the first page. Francis was still smiling. Liliana was still staring at me. Travis was still dwelling on his character arc. And Margot was left to quietly fume about the fact that her namesake was played by her arch-enemy.